The church is not inclusive in general towards gay clergy, again, lesbian clergy.
Not being able to get married within that setting is quite heartbreaking.
I think it'd be good if the church was completely removed from our politics. Then I'd be happy for them to decide whatever the hell they like.
I think the Church of England is institutionally homophobic.
The results of the Living in Love and Faith course show a very real need for change.
The Living in Love and Faith programme promotes inclusivity within the Church of England. Now, the person heading this project is the Bishop of London, who I contacted but unfortunately was unavailable for a comment due to doing other projects within the programme. Now, I use this as an opportunity to look into this programme even further, and to my surprise, it actually was the Archbishop of Canterbury at the front of all of the videos on the website explaining what this programme was. Now, that may not come as a surprise to many of you, but if you hearken your minds back to the start of the year, Sunday Tolsvig actually spoke very negatively about the Archbishop of Canterbury and about their meeting that they had, and despite it being quite a calm meeting, apparently the Archbishop of Canterbury made it very clear his stance on same-sex marriage and the fact that the church wasn't going to change what they were doing and their stance on this. Now, I did contact both of them, but neither wanted to comment any further on this issue. Ironically, this comes 10 years after the 2013 Marriage Act was put into play, where here at the Houses of Parliament, same-sex marriage was legalised. Now, I was lucky enough to actually speak to one of the first couples to marry after that legislation came into play, in David and Peter.
We are Peter McGraith and David Cabreza.
Thank you. I am American, obviously, but I've been over here in the UK for about 28 years. I met Peter 26 years ago.
Yeah, we met here in London and we've lived here ever since, and we were the first couple to marry in the UK. Well, firstly, I think it'd be good if the church was completely removed from our politics. Then I'd be happy for them to decide whatever the hell they like. But while they are the established church, I think then it's really not good that their practices should be out of step with today's legislation. I think a lot of people don't even think about how the church is involved in politics, but it still has an influence. They're called upon when there's a public debate, and they have an influence all around the UK and in the Commonwealth.
You know, ultimately, if they want to stay out of touch, then they risk losing their members, and you know, it's up to individuals to decide whether they want to be part of that or not. But I do think that to the extent that religion starts getting involved in the state or in other people's lives who aren't part of that religion, then there's a problem for me.
It'd be nice if they were irrelevant, the Church of England, and whatever the Archbishop is trying to do. But they're not actually irrelevant, and it'd be so easy to say it doesn't matter what they do and think. But unfortunately, it still does, because they're the established church.
Hi, I'm Honey. I am a queer Christian and I attend primarily C of E churches. I'm a student, I'm in third year, I study politics at the University of Nottingham. It's a bit of a red herring in that it is the church saying that they will be listening and the church not doing anything about what they're hearing, because the results of the Living in Love and Faith course show a very real need for change, and then the actions taken immediately after, the votes, show that it's never going to come to anything, because that is the hierarchical nature of the church, in that, you know, the few who do get the actual ultimate say over change are the ones who don't want it. The church just does need radical transformation, and that is what Jesus was about. He went into church and he flipped tables at the temple, and he said to the Pharisees that, look, prostitutes and tax collectors are more blessed, or more holy, I guess, than you are, Pharisees, because you're so hypocritical, and you don't actually care for the poor. And I do think that is what is being played out. This is going to be the sort of issue that is seen in, well, hopefully in another 50 years as I can't believe we ever suppressed that. Similar things for like women in the workplace or like interracial marriage, you know, those were huge issues at the time that were seen as like, that's never going to happen, that's an abomination, and that's the same kind of language that's being used around gay marriage. And I do think we will move on from it, hopefully, but it is just creeping along, and it's not going to happen without something snapping, something changing. Marriage is a covenant that you make between God and your partner. I could still make that promise outside of a church and outside of the church setting, but it wouldn't hold the same weight. And so not being able to get married within that setting is quite like heartbreaking.
Finally, I sat down with Charlie Bell, who is an LGBT priest who has recently gotten engaged to his partner, Piotr.
For me, it is important, and in fact for both of us, it is important to get married in a church setting, because for us that's what marriage is. You know, that's part and parcel of what it is. That said, if the church continues to just get in the way and be difficult, then obviously those conversations would need to take place. We can't hold off forever. But then I do believe that within the next 5-10 years, the Church of England will change its mind on this, which seems like a long time. But I do think that that's where we're going towards. The church is not inclusive in general towards gay clergy, again, lesbian clergy. It tolerates us. And it knows we're here. There are plenty of people who tried to stop me being ordained because of being gay, not even anything beyond that, but just of being so. So I think the Church of England is institutionally homophobic. But I think on the ground, there are many people for whom it's not an issue at all. The problem is we have these rules in place. There's a document called Issues in Human Sexuality, and this is what we all have to sign up to when we're ordained. And that document is homophobic in nature and says, as a clergy person, you must remain celibate. And that's the rules. That's the official position of the Church of England. So whilst that remains the official position of the Church of England, you're being very much told that your relationships are not equal, are not the same as opposite sex, opposite gender relationships. So it's difficult. There's a lot of good stuff that happens on the ground, but the official Church of England position is pretty unequivocal and is not terribly welcoming. You lose people from the church because of this. You know, using churchy language, it's a missional disaster. What we're trying to do as a church is essentially tell people the story of someone who was crucified and rose again. That's what the church is about. And it's about bringing people into communion with one another. And then we see people leave the church because of what we're telling them. That is just wrong and frustrating and upsetting and everything else. We can do better than this. And I don't think we can put it off any longer. I think we've got to do better than this.